When a man finds his silence, he finds his power. Boys react, men respond, masters remain still. The moment you embrace silence in your interactions with women, something profound happens, something that rewrites the entire dynamic. When you stop responding to her games, when you detach yourself from her emotional roller coaster, when you find strength in stillness, her entire world changes. You aren't just removing yourself from the equation, you're removing the very foundation she built her power on. The second you withhold your energy, your attention, your constant validation, she experiences something foreign to her, uncertainty. And uncertainty breeds fascination. Have you watched what happens when a man who once gave endless attention suddenly goes quiet? Have you seen the transformation with your own eyes? One day she's distant, taking hours to respond, treating your time as worthless. The next day she's suddenly just checking in, sending multiple messages, creating emergencies that only you can solve. And you think, wait, the same woman who couldn't spare 2 minutes to respond now can't stop messaging me. No, she doesn't suddenly value you more. She values what's being taken away, your attention, your energy, your desire. This is the power of strategic silence. This is the essence of emotional control. This is why Stoicism has survived for thousands of years as a philosophy of power. But before we explore the stages a woman goes through when you suddenly go silent, I need you to understand something crucial. This isn't about manipulation. This isn't about games. This is about reclaiming your self-respect. If you're ready to master emotional control and discover the power of silence, comment below. I control my reactions. Say it, type it, live it. And if you want more men to discover this life-changing wisdom, hit that subscribe button. Help us reach those still giving their power away, still living at the mercy of others' validation. Now, let's explore the 5 distinct phases a woman experiences when you suddenly go silent. Phase 1. Confusion and disbelief. When you first go silent, she experiences cognitive dissonance. The world as she knew it stops making sense. Women are masters of social dynamics. From a young age, they learn to navigate relationships through communication, through emotional expression, through connection. Their power exists in the social realm, in knowing where they stand with others. When you suddenly go silent, you disrupt her entire understanding of the relationship. At first, she'll assume you're just busy. This is her mind protecting her ego. She'll tell herself, he's probably just caught up with work, or his phone must be dead. She needs these explanations because the alternative is too threatening to her self-image. But as hours turn into days, her confusion grows. She checks her phone more frequently. She rereads your last conversation looking for clues, for anything she might have missed. She wonders if her messages are even sending properly. This confusion is uncomfortable for her. Humans crave certainty, and women especially need to know where they stand in relationships. Your silence denies her this certainty. And what does she do with uncomfortable emotions? She seeks resolution. She needs to re-establish equilibrium. This leads directly to the second phase. Phase 2. Testing and probing. Now the games begin. As her confusion intensifies, she starts deploying reconnaissance tactics. She's gathering intelligence, testing boundaries, seeking to understand what's happening. First come the casual probes, the random "hey" text, the ambiguous emoji, the reaction to your social media post, the question that could have easily been answered elsewhere. These aren't genuine communications. They're fishing expeditions. Each one is designed to provoke a response, to see if you're still emotionally available, to test if her power over you remains intact. If you respond immediately, especially with emotion, she knows she still has control. You've just confirmed you were simply playing a temporary game, and her world order is restored. But if you maintain your silence, or respond with measured, minimal energy, something fascinating happens. Her probing intensifies. The texts become more frequent, the questions more urgent, the emotions more transparent. She'll manufacture scenarios that seem to require your response. I need your advice on something important. Something reminded me of you today. Just wanted to make sure you're okay. Each message carries the same subtext. Please confirm that I still matter to you. And here's where most men fail. They see these messages as genuine interest. They interpret her renewed attention as desire. They mistake her anxiety for affection. They break their silence, rush back into her orbit, and immediately surrender all the power they had been building. Don't make this mistake. Recognize these tests for what they are. Attempts to restore the power dynamic that previously existed, the one that benefited her at your expense. Phase 3. Emotional escalation. When testing fails to restore her sense of control, her emotional state escalates. This is where things get intense. The casual texts transform into direct questions. The subtle probes become explicit demands for communication. The emotional tone shifts from neutral to charged. You might receive multiple messages in succession, calls at unusual hours, long paragraphs analyzing what went wrong, accusations of immaturity or game playing, direct questions, "Why are you ignoring me?" Her ego is now fully threatened. Her self-image as someone desirable, someone worth pursuing, someone with power, it's all at risk. Some women will express this through anger, others through sadness. Some will attempt guilt, others will try seduction. The specific emotion matters less than understanding what's happening beneath. Her need to re-establish control is becoming desperate. This phase reveals a fundamental truth that society rarely acknowledges. Women are often more attached to the power dynamic than to the man himself. When you were giving constant attention, she had the power to accept or reject. She controlled the temperature of the relationship. Your silence has reversed this dynamic, and for many women this reversal is intolerable. It challenges not just her power in relation to you, but her entire self-concept. Phase 4. Reassessment and value inflation. This is where the magic happens. This is where your perceived value fundamentally changes in her mind. When her emotional escalation doesn't bring you back, she's forced to reassess who you are. In her mind, a simple equation exists. Men who give attention easily value themselves less. Men who withhold attention value themselves more. As you maintain your silence, as you demonstrate control over your own emotional responses, she begins to question her initial assessment of you. Maybe you're not like the others. Maybe you're not so easily manipulated. Maybe your time and attention are actually valuable. And here's the psychological principle that works in your favor. Humans value what is scarce. We want what we cannot easily have. By maintaining silence, you've transformed yourself from an abundant resource into a scarce one. Suddenly, she's thinking about you more frequently. She's remembering positive interactions. She's minimizing past conflicts. She's imagining scenarios where you're together again. This is value inflation in action. Your stock is rising not because you've changed, but because your behavior has changed her perception. She begins to convince herself that you had qualities she didn't fully appreciate before, that perhaps she made a mistake in taking you for granted. This reassessment is powerful because it happens within her own mind. You're not trying to convince her of your value, she's convincing herself. Phase 5. Pursuit and role reversal. The final phase represents a complete inversion of the original dynamic. The woman who once made you wait hours for a response now responds to you instantly. The woman who was too busy to see you now has a surprisingly open schedule. The woman who was emotionally distant is now expressive, attentive, interested in every detail of your life. She initiates conversations. She suggests plans. She becomes the pursuer. This role reversal happens because you've demonstrated something rare: emotional self-control. You've shown that your well-being doesn't depend on her validation. You've broken free from the need for external approval. And paradoxically, this independence makes you more attractive. She now wants to earn your attention, your validation, your desire, the very things she took for granted before. But here's the critical insight. This new behavior isn't necessarily a reflection of genuine change. It's often a temporary adjustment designed to restore the previous power balance. Once she feels she has regained control, many women will slowly revert to their previous behavior. They'll test boundaries again. They'll gradually withdraw attention again. They'll attempt to re-establish the dynamic where they receive more than they give. This is why understanding female psychology isn't enough. You must also master your own emotional responses. You must develop the Stoic ability to remain centered regardless of external validation. The ancient Stoics understood something profound about human nature. We suffer not from events themselves, but from our reactions to those events. When a woman withdraws attention, most men react emotionally. They experience anxiety, insecurity, frustration. They take immediate action to alleviate these uncomfortable feelings. But the Stoic man understands that these emotions are merely internal events. They are weather patterns passing through his consciousness. They do not require action. This is the foundation of true emotional control. Not suppressing emotions, but observing them without being controlled by them. When you can sit with the discomfort of someone else's withdrawal without immediately reacting, you discover a form of power that few men ever experience. You're no longer manipulated by the fear of loss. You're no longer driven by the need for validation. You're guided by your values, your purpose, your self-respect. This emotional self-mastery is what makes silence so powerful. It's not the silence itself that transforms the dynamic. It's what the silence represents. It represents a man who values himself, a man who won't sacrifice his dignity for temporary validation, a man who understands his worth isn't determined by others' perception. So where do you go from here? How do you integrate these insights into your life? First, recognize that the goal isn't to play games. The goal is to develop genuine emotional independence, to reach a state where your well-being doesn't hinge on someone else's approval. Second, understand that silence is a tool, not a weapon. Use it to create space for reflection, for growth, for reassessment, both for yourself and for her. Third, when she does return, and she likely will, don't meet her with resentment or gloating. Meet her with the same calm centeredness that you've been cultivating. The true power of silence isn't found in how it affects her. It's found in how it transforms you. As you practice emotional self-control, as you detach from the need for constant validation, as you find comfort in your own silence, you become a different kind of man. You become a man who attracts rather than pursues, a man who inspires rather than convinces, a man who leads rather than follows. This is the path of the Stoic. This is the journey toward authentic masculinity. This is the way of the man who understands that true power begins with mastering himself. Remember, silence isn't the absence of communication. It's the most powerful message you can send. Master your reactions, control your emotions, embrace the power of silence, and watch as the world responds.